I know in my last video I promised a highlight compilation yesterday, but this is far more interesting. Recently, a post was made on the Hunt subreddit by a user named Theuncrying. In summary, he goes into an in-depth analysis on the current state of quick-switching weapons, and why Crytek needs to make drastic changes to it. It's a really well-made post, and I don't want to take any credit for it, so I'll link it in the description where you can go read it for yourself. This argument isn't anything new. For about a year now, there's been a minority of players who had voiced their complaints about quick switching, but the reason this is worthy of its own video is because of the massive amount of traction this post has gained relative to the ones made about this topic in the past. Previous posts on quick switching were not as in-depth and would always die with very few upvotes and new. However, in the past 24 hours, this post has gained hundreds of upvotes as well as awards, perfectly illustrating the sentiment that currently lies within the community. If Hunt is what Crytek claims and is truly a game based on community feedback, there is bound to be an official response in the next upcoming weeks. If you're not interested in an opinion piece, the informational part of this video is over and you can click off now. However, before you do, I encourage you to share this video for the same reason I made it. This post on quick switching needs visibility. Crytek has addressed this issue in the past pretty nonchalantly, but the fact that an analysis like this has gained popularity after over a year proves that this topic still requires attention and needs to be properly addressed. I want this post to be spread as much as possible because, like the ones made before it, I fear it will be quickly snuffed out by a significant proportion of the community that has grown too attached to quick switching, thus preventing any real change from being made. That being said, let me go over how the Theuncrying is right and why quick switching as it exists now has to go.
Attack this guy. 3 billion. There you go.
Nice.
Before I continue, in order for you to understand my perspective, there's one truth you have to accept. Long ammo is king, and has been since full release. If you can't accept that fact, none of what I'm about to say will make sense. To illustrate why quick switching needs to be changed, let's take a brief look at Hunt's history. This is what weapon sway once looked like. The reason why it was so wibbly wobbly is because of the original intent of high-level gunplay to feel clunky but powerful. We'll get back to that point later. Another aspect that was changed over time were the animations of pulling out your weapons. The Sparks was originally a heavy rifle that was slung over the shoulder, all pistols were spun out of their holsters, and the knife was flipped out of its sheath. Starting around sometime in 4.0, all of these animations were simplified for quick accessibility. However, because weapon sway was also being gradually reduced in tandem, the unintended consequence was that people began to switch to their secondaries to easily bypass the slower rate at which higher caliber rifles could cycle around. The earliest example I could find of this tactic being used efficiently was around February 2019, but it wasn't until full release that it actually started to see a rise in popularity. With all that in mind, this is what Hunt Showdown's gunplay should, and was originally intended to, look like. Compact ammo's main appeal being its faster on average rate of fire, and long ammo's being its consistency at longer ranges, while medium ammo serves as a compromise between the two. However, adding in quick switching makes things a bit more complicated. When they originally addressed it on stream, this is probably how they imagined quick switching affected gunplay. A concept that I actually don't disagree with. Compensating for the shortcoming of certain weapons via skill is intuitive game design after all, and that was their justification for leaving it as is. Contrary to popular belief, quick switching isn't as simple as just pressing Q. Having to reacquire your target and firing before your sights even have time to settle does have a learning curve to it. This was the reason why I was originally on team keep quick switching, because it took me a solid 40 to 50 hours to be confident in using it. However, the issue is that once the skill is learned, that's it. You no longer have a reason to use anything short of long ammo anymore. And so this is what Hunt's gunplay looks like now. In reality, what the devs thought was raising the skill ceiling was actually reducing the viability of lower caliber guns. Because you are now able to easily follow up with a second shot, there is now less of an emphasis on a well-placed headshot and more about securing a quick 2-tap. A tactic that, by and large, was originally intended for lower caliber guns. If you take switching out of the equation, most every gun in the game fits the graph I made earlier perfectly. It's the reason why the Winfield shoots faster, the Mosin shoots slower, and the Viterli is in between. But suddenly, throw quick switching in the mix and speed becomes consistent across the board. The one thing that does change is the effective range. At 20 meters, a 2-tap by a Winfield conversion is just as fatal as a Mosin uppercut. Where it isn't is at 90. This overlap is why compact is barely viable and medium is straight up outshined by long. There are many ways Crytek could work around this. For higher caliber weapons, the weight could be increased while sway is decreased to emphasize the importance of every shot counting, and vice versa for lighter weapons. Quick switching could also still exist, but only for medium weapons. It fits the characteristic of serving as a compromise between the two ends of the spectrum. Possible actions aside, ultimately, the reason quick switching currently presents an issue is because there's no point in variety if it isn't balanced. If this were a game of rock, paper, scissors, we might as well all be playing with rocks. If the devs want an interesting but fair meta, emphasize different weapon strengths, but their weaknesses too.